Annabelle, a fourth grader at Indian Valley, would like to know, how do you get your stuff everywhere without it getting broken?
Hi, I'm Mary Bontrager. I'm the concertmaster of the Tuscarawas Philharmonic. And the first question that I'm going to answer today is from Annabelle. And she wanted to know how you take care of your instruments when you want to travel from one place to another so that they stay safe. Well, I think everyone's process is a little bit different, but I can tell you that no matter how big or little the instrument, even if it's a piccolo or if it's a big tuba or string bass, all the instruments need to go in a case when you go from one place to another. Some people, woodwind players especially, take their instruments apart into pieces, but the violin stays as one piece. But there's still a few things that I do when I want to put my instrument away. First step is I loosen my bow so that the bow hair is not tight anymore. That's really important. And then I place that in my case. And my next step is I take off the shoulder rest from the back of the violin and I put that away, and then I'm done. And I just stick my instrument in the case. I have a special blanket that I put over top of my instrument so that it doesn't get dusty, and close up my case, and I'm ready to travel.
Reese, a fifth grader at Indian Valley, would like to know, just what is it like being part of an orchestra?
Reese asked a really great question. He wanted to know what it's like to play in an orchestra, and that's a tough question to put into words because it's sort of like everybody's got their own part to play, and it doesn't always sound like a whole lot when you play it by itself, but when you put it all together, it sounds fantastic, and it's such a great experience to be part of that. It's sort of like a little puzzle piece, kind of like a viola part maybe in a Beethoven symphony. Doesn't sound like a lot, but when you add the rest of the strings and the woodwinds and the brass, it sounds amazing. And when I take this little puzzle piece and put it in the puzzle, it completes the whole picture.
Kane, a fourth grader at Indian Valley, wants to know what the most popular orchestra instrument is.
It's hard to say what the most popular instrument in the orchestra is, but for sure, there are more violins on stage than there are any other instrument, because the violin's a quieter instrument. So you need about 6 to 8 first violins, and then you have about 6 to 8 second violins to make a nice full sound. You only need a couple trumpet players to balance that out, and maybe 2 flute players. So there's more violins on stage than another instrument. I don't know if that means it's the most popular. Everybody has a different sound in mind for what they really like. I love the sound of the string instruments, not just the violin. I like the sound of the viola and the cello and string bass. String instruments make their sound from strings and a bow. Wind instruments like woodwinds or brass make their sound by blowing through the instruments, and percussion make their sound by striking the instrument. So just because there's a lot of violins in the orchestra doesn't mean that it's everybody's most favorite instrument. Some people like the violin, some people like the flute, some people like the oboe. I like the violin best.
Madeline, a fourth grader at Indian Valley, wants to know, how long do you practice before a performance?
So the amount of time I practice for a concert really just depends on how difficult the music is. But I'll walk you through my process of how I prepare my music for every single concert for the symphony. My very first thing I do when I get my music is to find the music on YouTube and to listen to it and follow along with my music. And I'll listen to usually a couple different recordings because every orchestra is going to play the same piece of music slightly different. That gives me a great idea of different tempos and also the phrasing of the music and places where the first violin part's very important, places where we need to be kind of supporting other instruments. Then the next step in the process is to figure out the bowings for the section. My job as concertmaster is to decide which direction bows are going to move for the string section, especially for the first and second violins. So down bows move this direction, up bows move this way. And we all move our bows together, up or down together, so that way it looks good and it sounds the same too. I'm going to play you a little passage from a Bach minuet and use one bowing. So I played every single note in a separate bow. Now I'm going to change the bowing just a little bit. You have to watch my bow carefully to see if you can catch the changes. And I'll try it even a third way. It changes the sound each time. So after I figured out the bowings and I put them in my music, then my next step is to actually practice the music. But at this point, I've listened to it several times. I figured out the bowings, which means I played it through multiple times to get the bowings figured out. So I know where the tricky spots are, and I'm going to practice those first. Then if the music is not too difficult, maybe it only takes me a couple hours and I'm good to go. Maybe it takes me a lot of practice before I'm ready to go. We did a piece a year ago at our train concert from one of the Brandenburg concertos, and it goes like this. Well, by the time I'd listened to that and put the bowings in, I was fine. I could play it. It was ready for the rehearsal, was ready for the concert. But if we would play something like Don Juan by Richard Strauss, I would have to practice a lot. I'll play you the opening to that. So that's a pretty tough piece, and that would take me many hours to practice and get that ready for a rehearsal.